China builds a highway mile for $6 million. America builds the exact same highway mile for $50 million. That is not a rounding error. That is not a measurement mistake. That is a $44 million gap sitting between two countries every single time a shovel hits the ground on a new road project. And if you ask most people why, they will give you the same answer within 3 seconds. Cheap labor. Chinese workers earn less. Chinese roads cost less. Case closed. Except the math does not work. If you strip out every single labor cost from a Chinese highway project and replace it with full American union wages, complete benefits packages, overtime pay, the entire package, the final price moves from $6 million to approximately $6.8 million per mile. Not 50, not even close. Which means the $44 million gap has an entirely different explanation. And that explanation reveals something extraordinary about how China engineered not just a road network, but an economic transformation that shifted 600 million people in under 3 decades. Welcome to Big Check Energy. It is 2026 and China now operates the largest highway network on the surface of the planet. But the story of how that network was built, and more importantly why it was built at that specific cost, is one of the most consequential infrastructure stories of the modern era. Today we are going to break down exactly where that $44 million gap comes from, category by category, and what it tells us about the future of global infrastructure investment. Where it all started in 1988, China had 0 miles of expressway. Not a small network, not an incomplete one, exactly 0. The entire country moved goods and people on 2-lane provincial roads, shared by coal trucks, agricultural vehicles, and bicycles. Manufacturing was clustering rapidly along the eastern coast, but the interior of the country, where 73% of the entire workforce lived, had no reliable connection to those coastal ports and factories. The government ran the numbers and reached a conclusion that shaped everything that followed. Without road access, the rural labor pool stays locked in the countryside. Without that labor pool, the manufacturing economy cannot scale to the level required. Without that scale, the entire development model collapses within a generation. The target they set in response was, by any historical standard, completely absurd. 85,000 kilometers of expressway. In a country that had never built a single expressway before. The first Chinese expressway opened on October 31, 1988. It covered 18 kilometers from Shanghai to Jie. It was built under a joint venture with a foreign engineering firm. The technical methodology was licensed, not owned. The decision that changed everything came immediately afterward. Rather than continue licensing foreign expertise project by project at enormous cost, China established state-owned design institutes and transferred every single lesson from those first 18 kilometers directly in. The foreign partners received their contract fees. China kept the knowledge. Within 8 years, Chinese engineers were designing and building expressways without any foreign involvement whatsoever. The assembly line revolution when China's highways pushed into mountainous Guizhou and Sichuan, traditional construction failed. Remote valleys had no staging areas, no favorable weather, no room to work. China's solution was counterintuitive. They stopped building on-site and started manufacturing off-site. Temporary factories were built near each project. Every segment was standardized nationally, so a girder built in Yunnan fit perfectly on a bridge in Guangdong. Moving 900-ton concrete segments into precise position then required an entirely new machine, a 91-meter automated bridge builder that a crew of 15 could operate, placing in hours what once took hundreds of workers weeks. The 3 real reasons. Category 1. Land. In the United States, land is private property. The Fifth Amendment of the Constitution requires the federal government to pay fair market value for any land acquired for public use. On a suburban highway corridor, land acquisition alone averages $12 million per mile. In active urban zones, that figure reaches $30 million before a single survey stake is placed in the ground. In China, all land is state-owned. Private individuals hold long-term use rights, not ownership title. When the government designates a highway corridor, it does not purchase land, it reallocates it. Average land cost per Chinese highway mile sits at approximately $400,000. That single legal difference accounts for $11.6 million of the $44 million gap before any construction equipment arrives on site. Category 2. Regulatory structure. A new American interstate project passes through an average of 47 separate federal, state, and local approval processes. The environmental impact statement alone averages 4.5 years from initiation to final approval. The direct costs of legal review, environmental consultants, public hearing administration, and documentation average $9 million per mile. China's 2004 National Expressway Network Plan issued corridor-level authorizations covering thousands of kilometers simultaneously. Average regulatory cost per Chinese highway mile is $180,000. $8.8 million of the gap eliminated before the earthworks crew mobilizes. Category 3. Supply chain structure. A standard American highway project contracts separately for geotechnical survey, design, earthworks, drainage, concrete supply, asphalt production, paving, signage, electrical systems, and landscaping. Each independent contractor carries its own overhead, profit margin, bonding requirements, and mobilization costs. The combined markup across a standard American highway project averages 22% of total construction cost. For every $100 in the budget, $22 flow into the administrative structure of contracting before a single cubic yard of concrete is poured. China's major state-owned construction groups own the cement plants, the steel mills, and the asphalt equipment. Production facilities are positioned within 3 to 5 kilometers of the active construction front. One organization, one budget, one mobilization. Independent analysis of a Guizhou Mountain Expressway project quantified this effect directly. Vertical integration reduced material and logistics costs by $8.3 million per mile compared to equivalent fragmented contracting. Added up. Land, $11.6 million. Regulatory structure, $8.8 million. Supply chain, $8.3 million. That is $28.7 million of the $44 million gap, accounted for by 3 systemic decisions that have absolutely nothing to do with the wages of the workers pouring the concrete. The specification no one talks about the remaining $15 million does not come from the construction process at all. It is buried in a design standard document that almost no Western infrastructure analysis ever references directly. Chinese expressways are engineered for a 20-year service life before major structural rehabilitation is required. American interstates are designed for 40 years. That single specification number changes the required thickness of every layer below the road surface. Thinner base courses, different subgrade treatment requirements, reduced reinforcement on lower traffic bridge decks. The estimated material volume reduction across the network produces $6 to $9 million in savings per mile. China did not build inferior roads. It built roads precisely calibrated to a specific economic window, with full awareness that by the time the pavement approached the end of its design life, the primary freight movement across the country would have already shifted from truck to high-speed rail. Engineering the road for 40 years would have meant overbuilding for a transportation pattern that would not exist at year 25. That is not a corner cut. That is a strategic decision made decades in advance. What the road was actually for in 1990, 73% of China's workforce was rural and cut off from industrial zones. By 2015, that figure dropped to 28%. 600 million people connected to factories and ports, not because of policy alone, but because the roads made it physically possible. America's $44 million per mile cost is not inefficiency. It is the price of a system built to protect communities from unwanted development. Both answers reflect different values. China built 20-year roads because it already knew what year 21 would look like. The road was never the point. It was always what came after. Do you think Western countries could ever restructure their infrastructure systems to close this cost gap? Or is the regulatory model simply too embedded to change? Drop your perspective in the comments below. If this analysis added something to your understanding, hit the like button and subscribe so you never miss the next deep dive into how the world actually works. We will see you in the next